Let's applaud that I've been back from Colombia from a trip that was extremely successful, not only because I'm setting the scene now with my Colombian hat, but of course visiting a producer, a farmer that we have been supporting for the past 4 years is an experience that I will keep forever, really. So as I said, it's not only about the hat, it is about building relationships, it's about people. So you may ask, why did I visit Colombia? Well, I visited primarily just to see where our coffee really comes from. We've got a very good relationship with Schneider from Finca Las Cruces, as I said, that we've been supporting for the past 4 years. And there's nothing like going to see people who are working very hard behind the scenes. And so the passion that just shone immediately from just being on the farm of all the people that are there, not only Schneider, the farmer, his sister Liliana, and the family history of this smallhold that we are very proud to be supporting. So visiting people, looking into people's eyes and seeing what goes behind the hard work. You know, as a roaster, you get green beans, you try and source the best beans, obviously, you add value by roasting it, but there's nothing like actually also seeing where it comes from. So if you ask me why did I go to Colombia, really for those reasons, for personal relationships, for understanding the process more, and yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to describe if you haven't been to a coffee farm yourself. But us as roasters and standing in front of the roaster and actually really firsthand seeing where this coffee comes from, standing to a coffee tree that actually has those cherries, the ripest cherries, picked in front of your eyes, and then depulped, and then dried, and the journey goes on. There's nothing like it, basically. So although these days you can get a lot of information on the internet, you can even do Zoom calls, you can see things on the internet like you've never before. However, you might think air miles are included in all of this for me traveling to Colombia. But again, it's so worth it just because you see people, you are in the environment, and you know, there are little things that the internet will never show you, things that are just final touches to things, that attention to detail that you can only see when you're actually there. So I was actually there seeing the whole process. So not only the picking, then the pickers coming back to base, weighing their coffee, then being selected by hand, and then the washing, the pulping and the washing and the fermenting process, and then the drying, and the whole environment. And even so, from the fermentation process that goes into fermenting just the fertilizer. So that was really interesting, which, you know, I never seen before. So the internet, as I said, can show you some things, but definitely not everything. So every air mile and every hour that I didn't sleep and every hour that I had to catch up with the time difference was really worth it. So now that I'm back, standing in front, you may just see the roast in the background. I'm back from Colombia and I've seen everything firsthand. Would you think, would it have changed my approach to roasting the coffee from Finca Las Cruces? Well, I would say yes and no. Not in the style that I approach to this coffee, because as I said, we've known this coffee for a while. Every year it might be slightly different, but you get used to it and you have a feeling for that coffee, especially when we quality control and cup it. The thing that I will say will have changed my approach is the emotions. You know, I stand in front of the roaster and I know where it's come from. I've always given attention to detail and I always respect what has gone before whatever origin coffee we roast. However, I would say, and it's a very personal thing to me, because I've seen the people, because I know the land, I would say emotionally it's just charged me with even more desire to create the best coffee that I can in the roasting process that you can enjoy and brew at home and drink. So one of the things that surprised me most in the whole process at the farm of Finca Las Cruces is, as I said, the attention to detail up to and including that the beans or the seeds are in parchment. So what's really important after they've been picked ripe, they've been selected, they've been depulped, they've been washed, they've been dried, the drying process of having the coffees in parchment, in the husk, which is a kind of a hard structure on top of the green seed, is to get that absolutely right. So when it comes to the milling station, which is further afield from the farm, is to have the moisture content absolutely ideal. So when it goes through the process in the milling station, that the seeds inside don't get damaged when the husk gets taken off. And what surprised me most is so many steps in the milling station until they actually get into the sacks and then shipped to us. So when they arrive at the milling station, they're first going through a screening process to see if there's any dirt or residue on the husk still. Once they've done that, they actually go through a lot of pipes and they go into the dehulling itself, which occurs at a certain temperature for a washed coffee and another temperature as a natural coffee, because the natural coffee might still have some impurities on the husk, which could clog up the whole system. Once they've been through there, then they go to the screening. So there are different sizes beans, and they go through little holes and screening. After the screening, they go into a big silo, and in the silo there's 3 compartments that you can choose which of the coffees by size we actually want to select. So in Colombia you've got Supremo, which is actually what we get from Finca Las Cruces. And then you've got just different sizes. You've got Excelsior, Supremo, Excelsior, and then 14, 15, I think it is, or 15, 16 screen size. So as they're all coming through that process, you can then open a little bit of that silo and then just take that size of coffee that goes through another area where the density is being looked at. After the density has been looked at, then it's the color. And so for color, there are some impurities maybe in the coffee that's been dehulled, that has some defects where there's maybe a bit of black on them. You don't want blacks in your green seeds that then become roasted and beans. And so therefore that screening section is again very, very diligently done at that particular milling station in Pereira that Finca Las Cruces uses. And it just blew my mind how many steps before then, and the impurities get put aside, and then only do the beans that we get here at the roastery get put into Finca Las Cruces ruby sacks, and then they arrive here. So that really blew my mind. That attention to detail, and Schneider, the farmer of Finca Las Cruces, choosing the best milling station around. So my trip to Colombia was actually a business trip, obviously. But did I do anything other than being around the coffee farm? Of course, the farmer treated me to a night out. And I was, I would say, not forced, but encouraged to try aguardiente amarillo, which I must say, I am a whiskey drinker, but this comes close to how much of it I can drink. Not that they wanted to get me drunk, by no means. However, I'll just show you how much. That's kind of a serve. No, a little more actually. That's kind of one serving, and it's lovely and yellow, isn't it? So it's sugarcane actually, but there's no added sugar. And on the nose, it's fennel. It's really. It's what you call it, like a Pernod in France. So it's actually, it smells delicious, and when something smells good, you just have to drink it. So bear with me. You have to down it. Wow, that brings back memories, I must say. That really brings back memories. I downed 7 of these. 7, yes, you've got me right, 7. And I wasn't drunk. Now, I really don't drink alcohol. I drink half a glass of red wine and I'm tipsy. So wine is not for me. Aguardiente amarillo is just amazing. So thanks again to Liliana, to Schneider, to introduce me to this beautiful beverage. So this is what I did when I wasn't on the coffee farm. And the music, yeah, the music was great. The music was great too, and the food was great. So, but this comes in first, definitely. So the most memorable thing to take away from this trip to Colombia, to Finca Las Cruces, is for sure, without a doubt, the people involved. It is not only Schneider and Liliana, the brother and sister duo, that make all this magic and make it all happen. Their passion, their attention to detail is second to none. Their ambitions is second to none. The mother, Ruby, that is on our sacks that we received from Colombia, is the most delightful and charming and welcoming person you will ever come across. So I had the great fortune to stay in her house, to be welcomed with open arms to her house, for her to cook for us all the breakfast. Now, if you don't like meat, don't go to Colombia, because you do have to eat meat. I don't eat meat a lot, but there, I tell you, it's another dimension to it. And also the hot chocolate. The hot chocolate was delicious. The breakfasts were so sustainable for the whole day that we didn't really have to eat much more. So really, what stays with me now, joking aside, is the people. It is the people I had the great fortune to be with for a week in Colombia, Finca Las Cruces. So when it comes to appreciating a cup of coffee, has it really changed my perception of appreciation for a cup of coffee that I might make here or at home, or indeed you at home? I would say yes, because the attention to detail when you are at a farm is really amazing. And now if you can imagine 50 beans that go into a shot of coffee, an espresso, a milk-based drink, more if you do a filter coffee, all these have been picked by hand by a very skillful picker that gets paid by how many beans, that all gets weighed, he can pick in the morning session or in the afternoon session. And by seeing all this and by knowing that through drinking that cup of coffee, I'm actually helping somebody's livelihood, I mean, that is pretty amazing. It's a tall order maybe for you to think about it, but you now know how much goes before even we get it to the roastery, and then you prepare it. So I think the love, the attention to detail, all this matters because it's a sensory experience, coffee. Do you know what? It is not only to wake up in the morning. You have to try and really savor a cup of coffee. And of course it helps when you know the whole journey this coffee has made until it ends up in your cup. And hopefully you will have also paid attention on how you brew it. So coffee is not just coffee. I hope you can really enjoy. If you haven't tried our Colombian Finca Las Cruces, I really encourage you to get a bag and to try it. It is a delicious, delicious coffee. So I will let you into a little secret. Actually, my mission to go to Colombia, I was called Agent Discovery. I gave myself the name Agent Discovery because it was a discovery and I discovered a lot, as I told you before. So the other thing that I experienced, what I haven't mentioned before, was actually an earthquake. And that was pretty scary because first I didn't know what it was. So 100 kilometers from Finca Las Cruces, from Quinchia, which is the village just outside of Finca Las Cruces where we stayed, there was an earthquake about 100 kilometers away from that. And it was at 6:30 in the morning. I was awake because of jet lag and I felt something. I felt the windows were kind of vibrating. But it wasn't for very long and I just kind of didn't think twice. A few seconds later, it was much, much stronger and I leapt out of bed and I thought maybe a huge lorry was passing, but there was nothing. And I went like, no, that's really bizarre. And then I went out into the kitchen area and Liliana was already up making breakfast for us. And she said, did you experience the earthquake? And I went like, yes, I experienced an earthquake. So that was pretty amazing. But you know what? Agent Discovery can get through everything. Just to prove that Schneider and Agent Discovery, we've just survived an earthquake. What was that like, Schneider?
Well, I think it was very strong. I think the first one,
Yeah,
I think the whole place was just moving.
yeah.
And then I thought, we were a bit shaken. And then the second one came round, the
Yeah.
second tremor. And the whole place was shaking.
Yeah, shaking. Noisy, the windows. Anyway, we're survivors, and this is Ileana, also a survivor, right? Yay! Roger and out. So this is Agent Discovery signing out for now. I hope to see you soon again, maybe from a different country.